Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum. I'm Jason Romano. Great to have you joining us on the show today. As always, we're sponsored by Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. It's $38 tax deductible and an opportunity for you to release a child from poverty. Go to the website, compassion.com/sportsspectrum. You'll see a list of children there. Pray about it. Consider sponsoring a child. You'll provide food, education, medical care, and vocational training. Done in Jesus' name, the most important thing. For $38 a month, you can change a child's life forever. Go to compassion.com/sportsspectrum and consider releasing a child from poverty today. Today on the podcast, we welcome Danny Woodhead to the program, a former NFL running back, undrafted, coming out of tiny Chadron State in Nebraska, Division II school in 2008. Danny is a lot of fun. He's a smart guy, and I think you'll really enjoy hearing the stories that he tells here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. He's one of those little engines that could guys. 5'8", 200 pounds, coming into the league, undrafted. The odds of him making a team, a short white running back from Nebraska, from Division II, trying to make it into the NFL, and somehow he played 10 seasons with the Jets, Patriots, Chargers, and Baltimore Ravens. He was a two-time Harlon Hill Trophy winner in 2006 and 2007. That's basically the MVP of Division II college football. And during his time with the Patriots, he played in Super Bowl XLVI in a game that the Patriots would end up losing to the Giants 21-17. Danny Woodhead caught a touchdown pass in that game from the GOAT, Tom Brady. In 2015, when he was a member of the Chargers, Danny finished with 80 receptions, 755 yards, and 6 touchdowns from the running back position. And then he retired after one season in Baltimore, retired after the 2017 season in early 2018. And Danny's just a great dude. I mean, when you hear his story, he's a passionate guy, but he's a great storyteller, and he shares just some awesome stuff about how God worked on him during his time in college, about adjustment to retirement life at 34 years old from playing in the NFL. Very candid there. And also, I had to ask him his favorite Tom Brady story, and he shares it with us here on the show. Take a listen to Danny Woodhead. Great conversation here on Sports Spectrum. Danny, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with you. It's been a while. We met, and I can't remember what year it was. It has to be 2012, I think, when you came to ESPN, did the car wash, and kind of walked around, and I spent the day with you there. And that's 7 years ago. It's funny to think like where life was and where you were. You were just telling me about your kids being born, and I don't even know if they were around in 2000.
No, you know what's funny is I think it might have been right before. It might have even been 2011. The only reason I say this is because I don't think we had Gia, my oldest, quite yet. But she. Because she was born in 2011, right before the season.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's kind of crazy. I mean, and seeing where life has kind of taken me, and the plans that I didn't have, but I think that God had has been very interesting. But I think also very, very amazing. And it's been a wild ride, but it's been one that. My wife and I are so thankful for, and it's been pretty amazing.
I want to go back about a year. You retired at the end of the 2017 season, going into 2018. So it was probably in the February, March timeframe, if I remember correctly, of 2018. But last year was the first year that you didn't play football. I have to imagine since you were a little kid. Do you remember that first week? When the NFL started week 1 and you weren't playing? Was that weird for you?
It wasn't that crazy. I thought it was going to be a lot different.
Okay.
But it wasn't that bad, and I think part of it was because I had been out of it since OTAs,
Right.
and that's something that I always cherished and loved, was going through minicamp OTAs, and then into training camp. That's something that I always loved, the team building and, just getting a team to, go after one common goal. I really loved that part of it and just the building of it. And then obviously I love the games too, but I think God took me to a point in my life to where I really felt like he said no more. And I think that's the reason why. Everyone's always like, don't you just miss the game? Yeah, Jason, I don't miss the game with an ounce of my body, anything in my body. There's
Really?
nothing about the game that I miss. And I thought, maybe this was just me playing, but I thought I was someone that loved the game as much as anyone. And I hoped, my fans or hopefully my coaches and teammates saw it too. Like, this kid loves to play football and he's going to do everything he can to help the team out. But it's crazy, just kind of the journey God took me on, because it was really one of those things where I was like, okay, this is done. And he completely took the love of playing the game away from me. But the love of the game is still probably as strong as it ever has been. I mean, my wife and I on Sundays, that's like our time. That's like our date day. And we just lay down on the couch and watch the ticket. So, I mean, I still love the game, but it's just, he took the love for playing away from me. And I'm very, very thankful of it.
So many people that I've talked to, so many guys on this podcast, just people I've come across in general, especially when they retire, it's a very difficult transition for them because of the identity, which is a common word you hear a lot, a buzzword in Christianity, of finding yourself identified with football. And you've done a pretty good job of explaining how the Lord took that away from you, and that's really a wonderful thing. But apparently he doesn't do that with everybody, because it can be a difficult struggle for a lot of guys. Did you struggle at all with identity and identifying as a football player once the game was over?
I would say I never struggled with the football part of playing. I will say that the first probably 6 months were very, very difficult for my wife and I. And that's just, I mean, it's a new thing. It's like a new life you're trying to live.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was so much identity, but it was just like, we are doing something completely different. For the last 10 years, I've been gone X amount of times. We always knew when I was going to be gone. Even in the off season when I was home, we knew that was just for a little bit of time. Then we come back to where Dad's home all day. And in some ways, she probably was really annoyed with it, because she had a certain way of doing life. And that's like, okay, we got to get the kids ready. We got to get Gia ready for school. Got to do this, got to do that. And it was like, you're in the way. And there was even one day she goes, I expected when you retired, that you'd be my little helper. And I was like, oh, no. I'm not going to be your little helper. Yes, I'm going to help, and we're going to do this together, but I'm not your little helper. Cause then that makes me feel like I'm a little boy, like her son. So I would say that there for about 6 months, there was some searching and kind of like, what the heck are we doing? And there was even times that, I would say for the first 6 months, I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. And I would almost say I almost went for a couple months almost into a depressive mode. And I never understood why, because I didn't miss the identity of being a football player. Cause at the end of the day, Jason, I don't care. And God's probably worked on my heart on it, is that I don't really care what people identify me as.
Right.
Like, as far as I don't need a job to be identified as something. Do I still like to work, and do I still like to do things and be active? Of course. But I don't really care. And I think God's, gave me that feeling that I don't care what people think of me as far as, oh, does he do this? If I was what some people would maybe consider a lowly job, as a custodian or a garbage man, I'm okay with that, because I don't see that as lowly. As long as you're using whatever gifts or whatever job you have to glorify God, who cares?
Right.
Because I don't. And I think obviously with the way I was raised, my parents making sure that, the church buzzword identity was in him and not in what I did. And that's something that I've tried to focus on, but there's definitely been difficult times. I mean, to say that I haven't is a complete lie and false, but there were some times, and I think God really worked through us. And, there was a time when I was retired for a couple of months, and I was like, God, what the heck is going on? Like, why am I dealing with anxiety? Why am I dealing with, this crap, like this, that, and the other? Like, what's happening? And it's funny because God, like, throughout it, just digging into the Word and, just coming across different scriptures. And it finally came to a point that I was just like, okay, you know what, God, if this is if I need this right now anyways, to just keep clinging to you, I'm down with it.
Yeah.
It sucks and I don't like it, but if this is what I need right now to keep clinging to you, I'm all for it. Because at the end of the day, when we're all dead and whatever, like, that means we get to go to heaven. That's really cool. So, like, I'm willing to suffer, like it says, and see your strength in it instead of me trying to just figure things out on my own, which I try to do all the time.
Mm. Did you struggle with that new normal that you described with not just your wife and maybe almost trying to discover marriage again in a different way because you're around so much, but with your kids? I know you have 4 kids now, and
Right.
It's been over a year, and adapting to that new way of life as a dad. What was that like?
Yeah, that there were some things that were different, but man, I loved that.
Yeah.
Like, not that I didn't love being around my wife, because that sounds really terrible how I said that. I loved that part.
No, I know what you mean.
But I missed a lot of some of my kids' stuff, events, when I'm gone on weekends or even during the week sometimes, like, you miss stuff. And I love it that I can be home, that I can, see my kids grow up at a young age, where a lot of dads, might not. Now I understand, like, I'm not a stay-at-home dad, and I've kind of figured that out. Like, that's my wife's an unbelievable human being, and that's what she's called to do. It's a little bit different for me,
Yeah.
and I'm gone a little bit more than her, but it has been an amazing time to build relationships with my kids, which I already had.
Yeah.
But it was amazing to continue to build relationships, because at the end of the day, as a dad, I want my kids to know everything about me, and I want to know everything about them. And I think you can do that through time spent. And I've been very, very thankful for that quality time that it's a little bit more quantity time, but still quality time.
Danny Woodhead is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. You alluded to growing up in a Christian home, but do you have a faith testimony that you can share with us? Maybe making that faith real to you. Obviously, I think a lot of people grow up that we talk to in Christian homes, and they're, in church when they're kids, but really it doesn't start to blossom and take shape until that faith becomes your own. Can you share your story?
Yeah, I mean, mine, obviously, the asking Jesus into your heart, I was at a young age.
Yeah.
I don't know, anywhere from 3 to 5. So, I mean, I kind of somewhat grasped it a little, but I mean, at 3 to 5, like, what do you, like, you don't understand it. And,
Right.
and really you don't understand it until, at least in mine, was until college, when it's like, you don't have to go to church, Danny. You know, like this, you do not have to. Your faith becomes your faith and not mom and dad's faith.
Yeah.
And I think in college, I was very, very fortunate that the pastor of our church, Randy Dockweiler, kind of took in my brother and I and a couple other buddies, and was very, very fortunate to build a relationship with him and some other people. And I would say that's when I really started to understand it even more. And when you grow up in the time frame I grew up in, not that it was so legalistic, but some of it was legalistic. And
Sure.
And I think grace just became a little bit more real once I was in college. And just the unbelievable gift that we've been given, because at the end of the day, I still do it. I try to be good. I try to, and I want to be a good person, of course, but that's not getting me anywhere.
Right.
Like me going out and opening a door for an elderly person, that's just something, I think is a very nice thing to do.
Sure.
But that's not getting me into heaven.
No, how good is good, right?
Right, exactly. And it's like, even if I was a great person, guess what, Danny? That ticket isn't punched to heaven because you did that.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you're so not Jesus, and you've sinned many times. But I think as I gotten older, I understood that no, it doesn't really matter. It's because Jesus already did what you're trying to do, Danny. You're trying to be so good because you're trying to earn your salvation when you can't. And I think that's something that I've learned, and honestly, I think maybe in 34, I'm still learning about grace. I'm to this day, there's still new things that you're like, oh wait, grace covers that, Danny, and because I'm a perfectionist, I'm a little bit more borderline, I would say, OCD, and so I live in the perfectionism world, and probably some of it comes from playing professional football too. And what that does is sometimes it kind of bleeds over into your spiritual life, which is not the most fun thing. But so I think I continually am learning about grace, and just so thankful that we got a God who doesn't condemn us, and for those sins that we've committed. And another thing that's awesome is he doesn't identify us as sinners.
Right.
And he identifies us as saints, as children of God. As another way that I've kind of talked about too is when God looks down on me, and I'm so thankful for it, he sees Jesus. And that's because Jesus completely replaced everything that I've done. And I'm so thankful for that.
When you came to the NFL, you went to Chadron State, very tiny school in Nebraska, Division II, and you dominated there, certainly, but still went undrafted. So as you come to the NFL, what was the adjustment like? It's always a big adjustment from college to the NFL. Coming from a Division II school, what was that adjustment like? Maybe both on the field, because it took you a few years to kind of get that down and make a team and be a contributor, but also from a spiritual perspective and coming into this professional sports football world.
I think the biggest thing football-wise was on the field was realizing it's a business. And I don't mean to. I don't want to paint a bad picture of the NFL, because I love the NFL and everything that it's about. And I was very, very fortunate to play in it for 10 years, but it's a business. And depending on certain teams, the best players don't always play. They say that, but they're going to play their draft picks. They're going to play their guys. Yeah. So stuff like that was a little different. I mean, the speed's different, stuff like that. But the business side, you ask any rookie, they're like, wow. I didn't know it was going to be like this. People are getting fired left and right, all that stuff. So I think that was the biggest adjustment. Off the field, I think the biggest adjustment is I got married to my wife the summer before. So July 5th, I had to be back at camp July 11th.
Wow.
Because I was a rookie. So I got married then. Then I tore my ACL in training camp. And then my wife had to fly out as I got surgery and drive us back, and we were living in New Jersey. And I think more than anything off the field is it taught us to, we had dated for 8 years, 4 years in a 8-hour car, our colleges were 8 hours away, a long distance relationship. And I think it was a time where in some ways we talked about it. I think it's just how God wanted it. So we could learn to live with each other and learn to learn to communicate and learn to be around each other. And we were however many thousand miles away from family. So it was probably the best thing for us. It was hard times, but so the off the field adjustment would just be trying to figure out life with a spouse, because we're very, very selfish people, and you have to be, I'm still a selfish person, I know at times, but you have to have some selflessness.
Well, you also went from this little town in Nebraska to
Right.
New Jersey, New York City, then to Boston and San Diego. Like, that's much different than Nebraska, I have to take.
Yeah, there was a little bit of culture shock. You're not around that many people in the small towns that I grew up in, and but we ended up growing to like it. And now I know it's not a metropolis, but I couldn't imagine. Right now, I love the idea of being around a city.
Yeah.
Omaha's big enough that it's considered a city, and I've through all that, God's kind of made me into a little bit of a city boy.
Okay. All right. So the NFL didn't change in too many ways, but city boy wise.
No, I would say I'm a little bit more of a city boy than I would have ever thought I'd be.
Interesting. Now, I always wonder the welcome to the NFL moments for a lot of guys, and for you, it played out a little bit on the big stage. I remember on Hard Knocks with the Jets, and you were making the team, and you were sort of one of those guys in the Hard Knocks show that people gravitated to and started to watch. Do you have a welcome to the NFL moment for you where you realized, whether it was in a game or like you said, you realized it was a business, that for you, it was the moment that you said, okay, yep, I'm here?
I mean, as far as the business side, maybe getting released at a point when I didn't think I was going to get released or shouldn't have got released.
Sure.
I'm trying to pick my words wisely. But
a lot of people thought that way too, though.
Right, yes. And so, I mean, and even, maybe some coaches even told me that I probably should have been there, but
yeah,
and that's okay. But I would say, as far as the welcome to the NFL, I think probably I don't know about welcome to the NFL, but the first time that I really felt like I was, getting the opportunity in there.
Yeah.
And it was after my first game in New England. I scored a touchdown and on a long run and have a couple other big runs. And I remember Stacia, my wife, and we were still in an extended stay, and we looked at each other, and I still remember to this day sitting down on the couch, and we're just kind of watching TV. I don't know if we were watching, Sports Center or whatever it was, but we kind of looked at each other, and I said, what did God just do? Like, it was one of these, I still just remember it, and I remember God doing so much after that touchdown. And then the next week I scored on Monday Night Football, and it was kind of the same thing. Like, what on earth is happening? Because I was let's call it what it is, small white running back from a small town in Nebraska that just don't get chances. They just don't. And the thing that was awesome about that, being undrafted, not going to the combine, not getting a Division I scholarship, the thing that's been really cool about it is, as far as getting the NFL and playing 10 years, is I think what God was doing, and with the injuries I had, I think what God was doing, and my family and I have talked about this many times, is that by going that way, the hard way, everything, it shows that I didn't do it, and it showed that God did. Because it's all these things that were stacked up against me, and it was almost like God was just chilling, like kind of with a smirk, saying, okay, watch this. You're an undrafted running back. You tear your ACL day 2 of training camp. Right. Oh, watch this. I'll make you play, and I'll make you play for a long time, and it's going to be me, and I'm going to show everyone that it's me. And I feel like that's kind of my story, and it's been really cool to kind of be, in a way, feeling like I'm one of God's puppets, and that's what's been a really cool thing to experience and just see how it happened.
What was faith like for you? Maybe we'll start with New England, but just being able to be a part of a team, but also spiritually trying to connect with some fellow like-minded brothers in Christ. Was that easy or difficult for you to kind of acclimate yourself into Bible studies and the spiritual side of a football team?
I was very fortunate because really at every stop I had people, and Baltimore is a little bit harder to say because I was there for a cup of coffee.
Right.
But leading up to that, I was very fortunate that there's so many more believers where I mean, that's the church word, or the people that just love Jesus.
Yeah.
Then I think I knew going into the NFL. You always think of, oh, there's bad dudes here, bad dudes there. And it's like, no, there's just bad dudes in the world, right? Like we like, and everyone, struggles with something. And I think once I noticed that, there's other people that love Jesus that are in the NFL, and like, it's not that hard to get to know people. And I was very, very fortunate. New England was huge for us because we met a couple, Paul and Virginia Friesen, some of the best people that we could have ever met, and they kind of led a couple study in New England, and they were almost because my parents and her parents lived so far away, and so they were like our spiritual family in New England, and it was a huge deal because when I was playing, they also had Bible studies for the women and just different things, and it helped get my wife plugged in and plugged into other people who love Jesus, and so that made things really easy. And then I think as I just got older too, I mean, I became an older guy.
Yeah,
so
a veteran.
Exactly, I was a veteran, and you invite people to Bible study. If they don't want to come, who cares? I get it.
Yeah.
It's not everyone's going to want to do it, but hey, if you guys want to, if you want to come hang out, if you want to chill, talk about, we all have problems, we can talk about our problems, then that's awesome. And we can do that because that's stuff that you need. You need a group of men, at least I do, to where I'm able to share my dirt, and they're able to share their dirt, because the thing is, Jace, like I'm not a perfect person. Otherwise, like I wouldn't need Jesus if I was perfect.
Yeah,
and
you'd be the first one that we've met that's perfect, right?
Exactly. and the thing is, I think just building relationships with people and being vulnerable, not only does it help others hear things, but it helps you get off your chest and just. So that was unbelievable in San Diego, the Bible studies. And then, like I said, I was in Baltimore for such a short time, I wasn't able to get as plugged in there, but I was very, very blessed with the places I was at.
You're asked this all the time, but I'm going to ask it anyways, because I know people who are listening to this podcast are going to say, okay, you're talking to Danny Woodhead and you played on the New England Patriots, which is weird because you actually played longer with the Chargers, I saw, than the Patriots. But yeah, I still think a lot of fans, casual fans, think of your time with New England and the Patriots, especially from the Super Bowl year and Super Bowl 46. So my question to you is your best Tom Brady story, or something that you can share. You may have shared it before, but he's still playing, and he's 8 years older than you and is a ridiculous freak of nature, and it's just incredible to watch. Just maybe your thoughts on Tommy, and if you can give us a good Tom Brady story.
Yeah, you know what? I think it would be the first week. I was there, and he was like, I think it was his way of testing me and just kind of seeing if like I can figure it out every time. So you have to carry in personnel groupings on offense. So how many receivers, how many tight ends, how many backs.
Right.
Well, I'd be calling it out, but I guess it wasn't loud enough for Tom. And I don't know how many times that first week he would just lay into me in front of the other 9 guys in the huddle. And I'm like, this Tom Brady's a jerk. Who is he?
Right.
And I remember being like, I have what did I do to him? Like, does he not like the way I look? Do I smell? Like, what is it?
Right.
But, it's funny. I think it was just the way that, his way of kind of seeing if I could figure things out and see if I'd buckle under pressure. And, the next week didn't deal with that at all. So it was just an interesting deal because it was kind of there's some welcome to the NFL in that, even though it was my 3rd year, but it was like I have the greatest quarterback of all time just laying into me, and I didn't even talk to him. I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
But I got through it, and I was able to figure it out and latch on there for a while.
It's crazy to watch him still playing and being as good as he is, right? At 42 years old now.
The thing is, with how great he takes care of his body, it really doesn't surprise me. And I know people are going to just be, think this is the most outrageous thing ever.
Right. No.
But if he wants to, like, he can play at this level. Like, I really believe if he wants to go through the daily routine of body work, yada, 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 because there's a lot that he has to do to stay ready. But if he wants to, I don't see why he can't play for 5 more years at the level he is.
That's
like
crazy.
it would not surprise me in the least. Now, yeah, you have to have things in your favor. You have to stay healthy. You have to have different things, fall in place. But if it does, like, it just wouldn't shock me, because honestly, I think he's better now than when I was there. I think he's a better football player, and I don't think it's close. And he was amazing when I was there.
Yeah.
But I think what he does, I think he's a better football player now.
Wow.
And it's not just because of his mind. The velocity of his passes are just as strong as when I was there. Yeah. And if he's not losing any of that, I know he's not losing how to, execute a play against cover 2 or 2-man or 3 or certain blitzes, blitz 0. Like, he's not losing that.
Right.
So if he's not losing his athletic ability, I think he's going to be good as long as he wants to.
It's so weird too, because you said, he takes care of his body. I have to imagine every NFL player, at least the majority of them, take care of their body. So there's something more that's happening here, because quarterbacks aren't playing at 42, much less playing at the level of being the best quarterback in the NFL at this stage in their life. It's just a different dynamic.
It's crazy. And I think some of it too, I think as we keep going on, not saying everyone's going to play that long.
Sure.
But I think just what everyone's finding out about the food that you eat, the things that you drink, sugar, like just different things, and how that affects, say, inflammation as an older person, or older football player. Like, inflammation's a big deal. Like, that can make it not impossible, but very tough to continue playing. Well, if there's different things that you can do in your diet to kind of eliminate that, well, you may be able to eke out a year or 2 more. And there's just different things now. I'm not saying everyone's going to play till they're that old, but if you do things and you're as dedicated as you want to be so you can play a long time, I think it helps.
Another guy you played with was Phillip Rivers, who was much different, at least from the outside looking in, than Brady. But he's such a character. And I wonder, and I know he also is a family man, a passionate guy, loves his faith. Wonder what that was like to be around him for the 4 years or so that you were there.
Phillip's the best. He really is. As far as before I talk about him as a football player, he's one of the greatest dudes that I had the privilege of playing with. Loves Jesus, has a family that they are they do things the right way as far as raising their kids. And
what's he up to? 9 kids now? 10 kids?
Yeah, nine kids. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets into double figures.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, I haven't talked to him about it, but it wouldn't surprise me if that happened. But he's a great man, and he's a great example of being a dad to his kids, and just the way that they raise them. And it's crazy. Like, if we'd go over to a barbecue over there, and it didn't seem like at the time they had 8 instead of 9. It didn't seem like they had 8 kids. Like, everything was, kids were just playing, but it wasn't like craziness. Yeah. And you could tell that their kids respected people, respected adults. So it was great playing with him. Now, football side, I think he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks I've ever seen.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
So if Tom Brady's the top, as far as just talent and brains and everything, Phillip's just a shade under, because the difference that Tom has, and I'm not here to bash anyone, and I hope no one would think of this, but Tom has the advantage of having, it's not just Bill, but a culture and a coaching staff that Tom doesn't have to redirect even other positions, or like, that's something that Tom has in his advantage. Now, is Tom the greatest of all time? Yes.
Yep.
I'm not saying he's not, but if there's someone that's almost Tom, it would be Phillip Rivers. And just because of his mind, and he's one of the most amazing guys to play with too, because he also plays like it's street ball, and he'll just kind of there'd be plenty of times we saw something, and as he was snapping the ball, changed my route as I was releasing.
Wow.
And there'd be times where it picked up a huge first down or whatever, and it's just kind of crazy, some of the stuff he does also.
Yeah, that's Phillip Rivers for you. I love watching it. It's if you watch football and if you like football, you like watching him play because he is such a passionate guy, and he's not the most athletic guy. You look at him and you're like, how's this dude? And his throwing motion's weird, and he doesn't fit the prototypical quarterback, but he's so good. He's such a good player.
And he's such a competitor, and it's so funny because before I went there, I was a Denver fan growing up.
Okay,
I couldn't stand him. I could not stand him.
Wait, you're a Denver fan from Nebraska?
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
What is that about? John Elway, it must be.
Yeah, I was a big Elway fan, and then he both times in free agency didn't even talk to me. So we'll leave it at that, Jason. But I will say this, Phillip, I got out there and I didn't really want to like him. I just didn't.
Yeah.
And then he ends up being one of my closest friends, and you see that it's just his competitive side, and that's what you see on Sundays.
That's cool. Last few questions here with Danny Woodhead on Sports Spectrum. There's a young player, right, and he calls you up and he says, Danny, I'm just coming into the league. I'm 23. I'm 24, and let's say it's a person of faith, like-minded, and they know that your faith is strong to you, and they're playing in the NFL. Maybe they're struggling to live out that faith. Temptations, money comes your way, status, prestige, all of that, the business side of the NFL. What would you say to that guy? How would you encourage them?
I think I'd encourage to keep living out their faith and just not keep doing what got you there, but just keep trying to live for God and just glorify Him, because everything that we're doing is so temporary. It's the NFL, like 10 years was a long time. And there's still people that remember me and yada, yada, yada. And that's something I really just don't care about. Yeah. But it's so temporary, and it's just what you do. So as far as don't get caught up in, the media, the press that may tell you you're the greatest person ever, or even on the other end, that you're the worst player in the history of the game, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And what you do doesn't matter. How you treat people with what you do and how hard you work. Yes, that all matters, because God wants us to work as hard as we can and glorify Him with the gifts that He's given us. But at the end of the day, it's just do your best to love people, love Jesus, love people, and not get so caught up in the football world, the celebrity world, because it's just so temporary and it really just doesn't mean that much.
That's good encouragement there. Danny, this has been great. Last question here from me. We asked this to all of our guests here on the show. Today, where God has you right now, 34 years old, dad, husband, 4 kids, what are you learning from the Lord? What is God teaching you today?
I think more than anything, just kind of what I was saying, is to almost simplify things.
Yeah.
And not getting so caught up in, every little detail of things, but just simplifying things. And what I'm saying when I'm saying simplifying things is what Jesus, or what God says in the Bible, is to love Him with all your heart, soul, and mind and strength, and love people. And I think that's the loving people is probably a little bit, even though it's so simple, it's very hard. And I, more than anything, is just asking God to give me a heart to love people. And what does that look like? Just giving people hugs? No. It means just treating people well, trying to, when you're around them, just, I don't know, make them smile, being a good influence, just doing something that maybe serve them in some way. And that's something that I'm trying to do now, is just, love Jesus as much as I can. I mean, I don't know how to love like him, but I'm going to do everything I can to love him to the best of my abilities, and then just love people, because I'm at that simplified mode, and hopefully, he can keep growing me in that area.
Danny, I know a lot of people will be listening and wondering, what are you doing now? What's post-retirement like? Are you in broadcasting? Are you just kind of enjoying that time with the family? What's post NFL career look like right now for Danny?
Well, you can post this on Twitter, Jace. Broadcasting, no one's invited me.
Come on.
Just like, I know. I have.
We can work on that, buddy. We
definitely can. What I've been doing with my time is I spend a lot of time with the family. Obviously, yeah. I said that. I do a lot of golfing when the weather's nice. But as far as job or what people, I don't have a regular job. But what I do is I do public speaking.
Yeah,
and I speak, whether it be to nonprofits, businesses. Probably my favorite is speaking to churches.
Yeah,
because that's obviously what I'm passionate about, and just kind of sharing my testimony, and I mean, I have shared like sermons too, but at the end, when it comes down to it, what I'm trying to do is when it's the nonprofit, all the different things, is I try to be a real person and say, that I've been very, very blessed, but that I have struggles, because I think people need to hear that sometimes, that I have struggles just like, anyone else. And yeah, God's blessed me and with many different things, and I'm so thankful for it. But I've had different things that I've had struggle with. And, when it's all said and done, God's always came through. He's never left me hanging, and I'm so thankful for that. And I think hopefully people see that my life's just a life of surrender to him. And, and I'm cool with that if they see that, because he's always taken care of me, and he always will.
He is Danny Woodhead, the former NFL running back. Danny, thanks for being here, man. This has been great. Thanks for sharing the stories that you shared in your heart, and let's stay in touch, my friend. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, for sure. Thanks a lot for having me.
Many thanks to Danny Woodhead for being here on Sports Spectrum's podcast. He's a great guy, isn't he? And I definitely think this dude should be broadcasting somewhere, because he's a really great storyteller. And I think someday you will see Danny Woodhead broadcasting and doing some analyst work on a network near you, whether it's Fox or ESPN or CBS or somewhere. Danny is really good, and I hope that he gets his shot doing that. And he is public speaking as well. And if you go to his Twitter page, if you're looking for an opportunity to bring him in to speak and share at your event, or maybe it's at church, you can go to his Twitter page there at Danny_Woodhead, and you'll see a Twitter handle and name there that you can contact to bring Danny in for your event or for your church or whatever it is. He is public speaking right now, and I think he'd be a great public speaker. He's got awesome stories to share. So thanks to Danny for joining us here on Sports Spectrum's podcast. Thanks to Danny, and thanks to Compassion International for sponsoring this podcast. They do it right with over 66 years of experience finding the most effective way to care for children in need through the local church, partnering with over 7,000 local churches in 25 countries, delivering God's loving care to children in need, one child at a time. More than 2 million children are breaking the cycle of poverty for good because of Compassion International. This is your chance to become a part of something bigger than yourself by sponsoring a child through Compassion, Christ-centered, child-focused, church-based, $38 a month, tax-deductible, making a difference in a child's life by bringing them hope, bringing them food, education, and medical care, along with vocational training. Go to compassion.com/sportsspectrum to learn more, pray about it, and consider releasing a child from poverty today. Check us out on our social media pages, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Of course, you can find us on YouTube as well. Go to our website, sportspectrum.com. That's where all of our content can be found. In fact, I highly recommend that you would bookmark that site, sportspectrum.com. sportspectrum.com. You'll find articles all day long on the intersection of sports and faith. You'll also find updates regarding, you'll also find daily devotionals on there. Great way to start your day right with God. And also every single podcast can be found over at sportspectrum.com. Check it out, sportspectrum.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time here on Sports Spectrum. Have a great rest of your day.